I have catalogued every kind of fear our outpost can produce, and until that morning I believed I knew the worst of them. I was wrong. The worst fear has teeth, and it was Vrail. We saw the boil 2 hours before the alarms understood what it was. A smear on the deep scanner, a stain spreading out of the fissure field beyond Corveth's third ring. The color our sensors give to anything moving faster than the catalog allows. I was watch archivist for Drossel Reach that rotation. A frontier post built into the broken half of an asteroid. 3,000 souls, a refinery, a chapel, and a foundation stone older than any of us, laid down by colonists who arrived under terms none of us had ever needed to read. I had spent 11 years cataloging arrivals at that station, ore haulers, pilgrims, the occasional drunk surveyor limping in on fumes. None of it had prepared me for a stain that grew while I watched it. By the time the boil resolved into shapes, it was already too late to call it a swarm. It was a weather system, wings beyond counting, chitin catching the gas giant's amber light, a column 40 kilometers deep, and climbing toward us at a velocity the refinery's defense grid had no language for. I pulled the old logs while the council screamed at each other on the channel below me, and the logs were no comfort at all. The last time the Vrail woke from whatever long sleep keeps them, 3 colonies further out simply stopped transmitting, one after another, in the space of a single night. Nobody ever found out what was left of them, because nobody who went looking came back to report it. We had no ships that could outrun that ending. We had no ships that could fight it. We had, as far as any record showed, nothing at all. A refinery crew, a chapel, and a stone, older than the colony. I did the only foolish thing left to do. I went down to the foundation stone, the one thing in Drossel Reach older than the colony itself, and I broke the seal on the ward stone our first settlers had been given as a condition of landing here, 2 centuries back, by a species none of us had spoken to since. The compact, the old charter called it, in handwriting nobody alive could read without a translator. Hold this, use it once, if it ever comes to that, and someone will answer. Generations of archivists before me had touched that seal, and left it closed, because believing in it cost nothing, and breaking it felt like admitting the colony was already finished. Nobody believed it anymore. I didn't believe it. I cracked the seal because the alternative was watching the boil arrive and doing nothing while it happened, and doing nothing was a kind of belief too, belief that nothing we tried would matter. I preferred the other kind. The beacon pulsed once, a low signal climbing out past Corveth's rings into the dark, and for 6 minutes, nothing in the universe responded to it. The boil kept coming, closer now, close enough that the refinery's outer sensors had started logging individual wing beats instead of a mass. I remember counting the minutes, because counting was the only thing left for my hands to do, and because the alternative was listening to the council channel beg for orders nobody had. In the 7th minute, the deep scanner screamed. Something had entered the system that matched no profile in our archive. Not Vrail, not any drive signature cataloged by any survey we had ever bought or stolen. It came in low and fast from the dark beyond the rings, and the scanner kept revising its own numbers because the numbers it found made no sense. A hull mass that should have torn itself apart at that velocity, an engine bloom with no visible exhaust heat, a profile that read, impossibly, as 206 years old, and still rising in output the longer it watched it. I want to tell you it looked like a weapon. It didn't, not at first. It looked like a tombstone that had decided to stand back up, scarred the entire length of its hull, plating the color of old iron gone dark with age, a silhouette nothing in our records could place. No symmetry a civilized engineer would have chosen, just mass and intention. It did not slow down, did not hail us, did not ask the boil to identify itself. It simply altered course directly into the column of wings, the way a man steps into a doorway he has walked through 10,000 times before and has no reason left to fear. The Vrail turned on it. Of course they did. To them it must have read as easy meat. A single dense target dropped into open air, exactly the kind of prey their whole biology is built to find and finish quickly. I watched the column fold inward around the new arrival, the way water folds around a stone dropped into a still pond. Certain, the way they are always certain, that mass alone would settle this, the way it had settled every other contest they'd ever entered. It did not settle anything in their favor. There was a kind of terrible patience to it instead. Point defense batteries opening up in a rhythm too even to be anything but practiced 1,000 times before that morning. Beams that didn't flare so much as simply end whatever they touched. And underneath it all, that hull pushing forward through the boil at a speed that should have cooked it from friction alone and didn't, the way nothing in our archive said it shouldn't. 4 minutes. That is the number the logs gave me afterward. And I checked it against 3 separate systems because I did not trust the first instrument that told me. 4 minutes from the moment it altered course to the moment the column that had erased 3 colonies simply stopped existing as a column. Scattered debris, falling chitin catching the amber light like ash settling over snow, and a silence on every channel that used to carry wing beats and was now carrying nothing at all. It did not broadcast a victory. It did not circle Drossel Reach for us to thank it, did not wait for the council to find words. The hull came about, unhurried, and for one long moment, its running lights swept across our outpost's viewport. And I swear, on whatever oath an Onir can still swear after a morning like that one, that it was looking at us the way a man checks a door is properly shut, before he leaves a room he doesn't expect to enter again. Then it turned away from Corveth's light entirely, back toward the dark beyond the rings, back toward wherever a 200-year sleep had been waiting for a beacon it had no real reason to believe would ever come. We tried to hail it, every channel we had, every frequency the compact charter listed, and several it didn't. Nothing answered. By the time our own patrol craft reached the debris field, the deep scanner had already lost the signature somewhere in the dark beyond the rings, the way you lose the shape of something falling back into water at night. I have spent the time since combing what little the compact charter actually says about the species that gave us that wardstone, and it amounts to almost nothing. A handful of lines. A name we no longer say out loud in council, because nobody wants to be the one who sounds foolish saying it to the open air, and one phrase repeated twice in the original treaty text, like someone long dead had wanted it remembered exactly. Not gone. Withdrawn. I think about that hull more than the recording warrants. Not the weapons, not the 4 minutes, not even the column of wings that doesn't exist anymore. I think about the patience in it, the certainty of something that had been buried in cold dark for 2 centuries, untended, unthanked, unconfirmed by a single living witness, and still came up already knowing exactly how the fight would end before the first shot was fired. We call it the Embergate now, in the reports, because the old charter names it nowhere, and somebody had to call it something for the record. I do not know if that is its name. I do not know if it has one, or needs one, or if names are even the kind of thing a thing like that bothers keeping after 200 years of not needing to answer to anyone. What I know is this: the foundation stone in Drossel Reach has a new seal on it, freshly cast, and every watch archivist after me will be told, the way I was told and did not believe, to break it if it ever comes to that. I have written the instructions myself, in plainer language than the original, so the next one believes it faster than I did. I hope none of them ever have to find out, the way I did, that the promise was real, and that something out past the rings has been listening this whole time, patient enough to wait 200 years for a single broken seal.